Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, the government is raising the cost of living. These inflation-causing deficits have raised the prices of goods that we buy and the interest we pay. Taxes are also driving up the price of production for these products and services. The more the government spends, the more prices go up. It's just inflation. As my honourable colleague from Calgary Forest Lawn will say, because I am sharing my time with him, Liberals will say there was no choice but to act and create these enormous deficits. But I would remind them that they added $100 billion to our national debt before COVID even started. 4 times more than the Prime Minister promised. They're already planning for 30 years of deficits instead of the 3 years they promised. And even before the first battle in Russia's war against Ukraine, the Prime Minister had added $500 billion to the deficit. And the inflation rate was more than 5%. The government cannot simply blame external factors for the current crisis, especially given that I warned the government that inflation was likely and that interest rates would likely rise. Unfortunately, the government continued to spend, to tax, and to bring about the crisis we are living through today. And a great deal of this money was squandered. The government spent billions of dollars sending checks to prisoners, to public servants who already had jobs. There were 1 million jobs with no one filling them while the government paid people to stay at home. During the 2 years of COVID, the Liberals added $200 billion of non-COVID related debt to the economy. The government's hand was not forced. They made a choice. And I warned the government that this would cause inflation. And they said, no, it won't happen. The Bank of Canada will just print some more money. It will make money out of thin air. Now we see the effects of this. Effects which have been the same as all the other cases in history. When you print money, prices go up. This has been true for thousands of years. History never changes. Every time a king or a queen or an emperor or a president or a prime minister, any time someone prints money to pay their bills, the consequence is the same: inflation. And after inflation, increased interest rates. And that's what we are facing today. So suddenly the government says they're shocked by the consequences of their decisions. Well, no one forced the Prime Minister to add $100 billion to the national debt before COVID, $500 billion to the national debt before the war in Ukraine began. No one forced this Prime Minister to prevent the production of affordable energy in Canada. These were decisions made in Canada, not imposed on Canada due to external factors. And now we are facing an inflation crisis. The price of food went up by 11%, and now there is an energy price crisis as well. Now, the government likes pointing their fingers at other people for the inflation crisis here. But you know what products are seeing the greatest price increases? Products that we can make here in Canada. Food, gas, natural gas. We have a lot of these products here in Canada. These products would have been able to help our economy if the government hadn't prevented our farmers from making affordable food and prevented our energy workers from producing affordable energy. Instead of making more money, the government could have made more of what money buys: more food, more energy. We need to get rid of the gatekeepers. We'll need to find a translation for that. I don't have a good French word for that. Okay, we'll make it a French word. We need to get rid of the gatekeepers. But there won't be a need for a translation for gatekeeper when the conservatives take power. There won't be any gatekeepers preventing the production of affordable energy, of affordable food. Right now, far-left Liberal NDP mayors are preventing construction. They have made it so that it takes longer in Canada than in any other OECD country to get a building permit, with the exception of Slovakia. Here, it takes 250 days on average to get a building permit. It only takes 28 days in North Korea.
Costs to produce energy, higher costs for our farmers, and higher costs for home building. More money chasing fewer goods always means higher prices. So instead of creating cash, we need to create more of what cash buys. Now, though, in the time when energy prices are rising, the last thing we need is a new tax increase on our people. Look what is happening in Newfoundland. According to the Newfoundland Premier, he said, and I'm quoting, a Liberal, "A year ago today, the maximum price of furnace oil in the province was 97 cents per litre. Today, the price is $1.55, which is an increase of nearly 60%. Your proposed federal carbon tax increase on furnace oil would result in an additional 17 cents plus HST. Wow. Added to today's price, the carbon tax would result in a total cost increase of 80% compared to 1 year ago." End quote. That is from a Liberal Premier. Similar problems are raging right across Atlantic Canada, where 40% of people are living in energy poverty in Canada, in a G7 energy-producing country. That is the result of 70 years of this Liberal government. Similar crises are emerging across the country. One energy analyst said Canadians can expect price increases on their home heating of 100%, all to pay for a plan to triple the carbon tax on Canadians. And by the way, the carbon tax has not worked to reduce emissions. The government has failed to hit a single solitary climate target with its tax so far. Yesterday, the Prime Minister was out saying, "I know I haven't hit any of my promises, but I promise to hit them in the future, and this time I promise not to break that promise."
Third time's the charm.
I'll tell you one thing, I'm not prepared to gamble on that. I'm not prepared to watch Canadian seniors living in rural Newfoundland and Labrador, living in Nova Scotia, who are forced to heat with oil and propane, to pay 100% increase in their home heating bill because the Prime Minister is promising not to break his promise, which he's broken every time he's ever made it before. That is not a bet I'm prepared to make. And so I'm calling on this government to allow its members from these rural communities to vote with us on this motion. Put aside the centralized control of this tax-hungry Prime Minister and vote with us in favor of this motion. If they cannot be disabused of their ideological obsession with taxing Canadians to punish them for the carbon tax, at the very least, will they, in the spirit of nonpartisanship and compromise, at least take the tax off home heating? As winter is coming, as the cold is soon to be upon us, as Canadians will soon be forced into the decision between heating and eating, will they at least have the compassion to side with this common sense coalition? Will they break off with their costly coalition with the NDP, stop punishing Canadians, And will they finally end the high-carbon hypocrisy, which sees a Prime Minister jetting around the country in a private aircraft, including flying down to Costa Rica for a sunny vacation right in the middle of the summer, when the winter is upon us, when people are not even worried about being on beaches? Let's not tax them. Let's allow them to heat their home here in our country. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Government, House Leader.
Yes,